Hi, I'm Aiman. Welcome back to one of my auto repair videos. In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove and replace the brake pads and rotor on a 2014 Honda Accord. Let's get right to it. Alright, first things first, we need to remove the tire. If you don't have an impact driver like we do, always make sure you loosen the lug nuts before you raise the car on the jack, because if you try to loosen it, then the tire will just spin. Okay, let's put this in a safe spot. And let's take a look at what we need to replace. If you're just replacing the brake pads, all you need to do is loosen the caliper bolts here. This one right here. You can tell them by the springs here, and the caliper bolt down here. Now, if you're just replacing the brake pads, all you need to do is loosen both of them, but remove the bottom one entirely, and then that will allow you to swing the caliper up, and then take the brake pads out. The reason you can't do the top one out entirely instead of the bottom one is because if you try to swing it this way, the hose will stop you from doing so. But because we're trying to take out the rotor, we're just going to take this out entirely and demonstrate it there. Okay, so we're going to loosen the bottom one, and I'm going to use my Milwaukee to wait. Oh, if it's stuck on there, always make sure you put PB blaster on, because rust might prevent you from undoing it. And because it's difficult to work with, make sure that you turn the steering wheel this way so that we have more access to the bolts. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so that was very tough. The thing about these bolts is that they're actually supposed to be torqued to 17 foot-pounds. So it shouldn't be that hard to loosen them. But it looks like because this car hasn't been repaired in like 100,000 miles, that might be why these are basically like welded shut. So just to demonstrate what I was talking about earlier with the brake pads, what you want to do is you want to loosen the top, but completely take out the bottom. This is what the bottom bolt looks like, so that you can swing out the caliper. And in order to do that, you need to pry it out. And then replace the brake pads from there. Because we're removing the rotor, we're just going to take this assembly out entirely. Alright, so correction, my dad told me that a mural told him that the last time that the brake pads were replaced was 50,000 miles ago. Which means that what probably happened is that whoever did this brake job last time over-tightened the caliper bolts. But that's alright. I mean, you can never be as perfect as the robots who assembled it at the factory. What we're going to do now is we're going to take the caliper off, and we're going to tie it up to prevent it to just get out of the way. So just put a bungee cord on the strut and just try your best to wrap this around and secure it, and hang it there. There we go. Okay, so now let's take a look at what we need to take out. We need to take out this caliper bracket if we want to replace the rotor. Now, if you're just replacing the brake pads, all you need to do at this point is take out the brake pads by using a screwdriver to pry them out. And also, if your replacement part dealer or whatever company brand gives you a replacement parts also gives you replacement of these metal pins, also take these out. But right now we're going to focus on the rotor. So next up for the rotor, we're going to take off this bracket by taking out the 2 bolts at the back here. There is a 17mm bolt here and a 17mm bolt here. Those right here. So these should have a torque of about 80 foot-pounds. If the person who, oh, actually the robot assembled this, so we don't have to worry about this. So for this one, we're going to use a breaker bar, just because it is very tight, and my 17mm. Okay, so we have it PV blasted, and we have the breaker bar on it. Let's just push. Make sure this is the right way to push it. I actually ended up stripping the caliper on the other side because I tightened it instead of loosening it. This way I know for sure, righty tighty lefty loosey, it goes left. So it's loosened up here, and we're also going to loosen it down here. Okay, and I'm going to go back and take these out, but probably need to speed that up. Okay, so I have my loosener. I have my wrench, so I'm just going to loosen this and speed it up. Okay, we can do that by hand, and we can also do that by hand. Every time I think it's going to be by hand, just a bit more. And that's why people use Milwaukee, because you can just use this, one and done, straight to completion. And it's out of battery. But that's why people use power tools, because, you know, they just make the whole process a lot easier. You know, before I thought, like, okay, I know when to use my hands to loosen something, because when I use the ratchet wrench and I go the way that's supposed to ratchet, it doesn't make the sound. And that's how I know that I use my hands to do it. But every time I did that, I have to put more force to loosen it. But anyway, we have our, let me just move this back. We have our caliper bracket taken out. This is what the caliper looks like. And this is what the caliper bolts, bracket bolts look like. Very thick. Alright, so with the caliper bracket, make sure that these pistons always pop back to where they were originally. Like for here, see, it pops back out. If I push it out, it goes back in. With this one, if I pull it out, it stays out. And if I push it in, it goes back. But the problem is, if this pin doesn't slide, then your tire's gonna wear out. But we can talk more about that, so that's a topic for another video. But just make sure that this caliper pin is able to slide back to its original position. And if it doesn't, then you'll have to lube it back up. Alright, so I put some grease on it. The old grease is orange, so I'm gonna guess it was really old. This one is green, so green is a good color. Let's see if this works. And if it doesn't work, then we'll just put it back out. Okay, so pushing in. Pushing in, it's very hard to see. What about pushing out? So we need to put more grease on it. Okay, so finally we've greased both of them up actually. And what's most important is that when you push them, they go back to where they were originally. Pulling doesn't really matter, just this pushing. But anyway, we have the caliper slide pins lubed up. Now we need to turn our focus to the rotor. To take out the rotor, we just need to take out this rotor screw right here. Make sure you keep this, because if you lose this, you have to buy a new one, because usually they don't come with a replacement rotor. And usually to take this out is extremely hard, and that's why you use this tool. This is called, I forgot what it's called, but it has impact in the name. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to put this screwdriver up to the rotor screw, rotate it to the left, and knock it. And it makes and this impact basically turns the screwdriver to the left a tiny bit. And that helps you loosen this up. This is kind of a bit of an awkward angle. gotta grip this really nice. Okay, so finally after, well, there's nothing that you can't solve with PB Blaster or WD-40. And finally, after, I don't know, 5 minutes of trying and continuously spraying PB Blaster on it, we finally got the rotor screw out. And it's almost stripped, which, I call that a win in my book. Now I feel bad for the next person who's trying to take it out, but hopefully we won't put it in too tight. Anyway, after this, next step is to take it out. Now the rotor for most people is going to be stuck. So usually the procedure here is just to hit it with a rubber mallet. A rubber mallet because it's soft so it doesn't damage the rotor. And just knock it all over the place. Let me get a rotor. And if that doesn't work, then you want to use 12mm bolts. You want to put them in these two holes. You want to keep tightening it, and as they go through those holes, they're going to eventually make contact with the rotor. As you keep tightening, it's going to push, no, not the rotor, they're not going to make contact with the rotor, they're going to make contact with the plate behind it. As you keep tightening it, it's going to push the rotor back. So, if this doesn't work, that's the procedure. It's extremely important you don't do this with a, like a metal mallet or a hammer, because you can still use the rotor after you take it out. You just need to resurface it. But alright, so it's night time. I don't want to wake up the neighbors, so we're going to just use these two screws, put them in the holes, and then tighten them. And we're going to tighten them with a number 13 right here. Okay, what you want to do with these screws is you want to make sure that you tighten them evenly. You want to make sure that you don't go too far with one screw, and because if you do, then it's going to be unbalanced and that might damage the rotor. Okay, so now that they're at the same spot, we're going to keep tightening it. We're going to use our hand, and as you can see, it rotates, so it's a bit harder. And we're going to keep tightening it until eventually it comes loose. And the first time it comes loose, then you know you're golden, because then you can just wiggle it out. Oh, I feel it come loose. There we go. So I just had to do just a tiny amount of turns with these screws just to get this loose, and now we can wiggle it out. And there we go. As you can see, the rotor is finally out. Some of that PB Blaster that we had on there is leaking. And that's what a rotor that hasn't been replaced in 100,000 miles looks like. And right now I'm going to bring out the new rotor that we have for a Muro in just a moment. Sheesh. So here is the new rotor that we have. And because this is a Muro, we're talking about, because this is my brother, because this is his car, we decided that we would go all out and get an original, genuine Honda rotor, Honda Accord rotor, a genuine part, just because, you know, we figured an aftermarket part wouldn't do justice for a Muro, because he deserves this kind of part. Alright, so this is the part number if you're interested. Usually genuine parts last longer and they're better fitting for the car, and that's why we thought it would be better to get this for a Muro. The cool thing about this is that we can actually keep this rotor, and after 100,000 miles or so, when this rotor gets worn out, we can resurface this one and reuse this one for this car. And then after that, we can resurface this one and reuse it after the next 100,000 miles. So these rotors are a good deal, just to resurface them. That's why you don't want to hit them with a hammer. make sure you use a rubber mallet or the screw method to take them out. Anyway, installation is pretty easy. Before you install it, just take a look at the face of it. This countersink hole, the one with the sloped side, is the one where the rotor screw goes in. I just realized I never actually put the rotor screw in a safe place. You also want to notice these two holes right here. These two holes are where the 12 millimeter, the two bolts that I showed you earlier, or where these two bolts go in, the ones that we talked about earlier. That's where they go in. So don't confuse these two with this one. Another way to tell is that these two bolts are right across from each other, but this one is off to the side. Alright, so first you want to make sure that you align the rotor screw with the rotor screw hole, and then you just want to put it on. I'd say this step is very important because sometimes you can confuse that hole, this hole, with this one, because they're about the same distance from the bolt right next to them. Anyway, now you want to put the rotor screw on. Alright, so now we're just going to put the rotor screw on. This one, we're just going to do it until it's snug. And there we go. We have now replaced, or rather installed, the rotor. Next step is we're going to install the caliper bracket. So you want to take your caliper bracket, in this case, on the other side we actually replaced the caliper bracket with a new one. This one we're just replacing with the old one. Make sure that these slide pins are lubed. And what you want to do is you want to take the metal plates. Oh wait, actually, at this point we can probably explain the brake pads, right? Alright, so my bad. So next step is we're going to put the metal brackets back on if you took them off. So in this case, our dealer, the brand that provides these auto parts also gave us the metal plates. Hopefully this is a standard across all times that they give you brake pads. Just put these back on. All you have to do is figure out how they fit on and then just push them on. It shouldn't be that hard, and you don't have to worry about confusing these parts because they are the same for the top and the bottom. Okay. Alright, so there we go. That's how it looks like. And now we're going to install the caliper bracket. So now what you want to do is you want to take the 17 millimeter bolts that you used to take that you took out. Okay, so now next step is, oh wait, actually, yeah. We're going to install the caliper bracket, and we have our bolts right here. So best thing to do is just right here. Okay, so it goes in like this. You make sure that all the bolts are facing the inside. That's the best way to tell. And then just line it up. Make sure that this part goes in between the rotor and this other metal part. And wiggle it until you can get it in the hole. Let me try the bottom first. Okay, I got the bottom. Now let's try wiggling the top. Okay, I got the top. So now we're going to tighten these. The torque on these ones are, torque on these bolts are 80 foot-pounds. Usually apparently they're the same as the tire lug nuts. So that's my frame of reference. We're going to use our torque wrench to do this. And when you're tightening this, be careful. You don't want to tighten it too much or you'll make the same mistake I did and strip the caliper bolts. In this case, they're aluminum, so they're very easy to damage. What the? I swore I tightened. What the? It went back to the way it was before. Alright, so now I am going to tighten it with the torque wrench. This torque wrench I have to be very careful with. I have to do it as soon as possible so that it doesn't turn off in the time that we're using. Okay, 80. We should hear beeps as we're doing it. So we're going to pull up. Okay, good. Alright, so that's 80 foot-pounds. Okay. Huh, that's interesting. It went straight to the rapid beeping. So usually what happens is sometimes it does a slow beep and then it does a fast beep, but that went straight to the rapid beeping. So that just shows you how fragile these bolts are. Alright, next up is to put the brake pads on. Alright, so we're back from the other video where we're replacing the rotor. We actually, as you can see, we have a new rotor. And now we're going to go back to the brake pad. So with the brake pad, because they give brake pads in packages for the front, always make sure that the brake pad with this tab here is in the right position. And the best way you can figure that out is just to compare it with the brake pad you had before. Make sure that the tab is on the top and that when you install it, that it's in the right orientation. Okay, and also, oh, by the way, this tab is going to face the inside. That's what I mean by the right orientation. It's not going to face the outside. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is this inside one. The best way that I've done it in the past is insert it from the top and then insert it on the bottom. In that way, it's less troublesome. And if it's a bit hard, what you can do is take a screwdriver and push that tab down a bit to help you insert it. But first, let me just try doing it by hand. Alright, so this is a very difficult part of the process. You really want to make sure that these metal tabs at the bottom, you push them out as much as they can to fill out the space that they're on, because these are very hard to put on. We put these on before this shot, so don't be surprised if it looks very easy for me to put this on. And like I said, top first, then bottom. Okay, so we got the inside rotor on, inside brake pad on. Now we're going to do the outside one. The outside one, I will repeat, has no tab on it. This one goes top and then bottom. There we go. What some people like to do is they actually like to put grease on the metal plates before they put the brake pads on, but that's not required. Alright, at this point, now what we want to do is we want to take the caliper we want to let go the bungee cord and we want to place it on top. The next step is we want to push this piston back, because right now if we try to put it on, it won't be able to fit past these brake pads. And the reason why is because these brake pads, oh, I forgot to do a comparison. The reason why is because these brake pads are much more thinner than the ones that we have on right now. So this piston is going to be much more clamped in. So our job is to clamp this as much as we can out by using this special, super special, awesome tool that I had just a second ago. Oh, this tool right here. So the way that this works is that, let me just tighten it. The way that this works is that as you wrench it, it expands or contracts. And we're going to place this in between the outside of the caliper and the piston. And then we're going to flick the lever on it to make it expand. And as you can see, it fits actually pretty nicely in here. I don't know, I just had to say that. And now we're going to expand it. Oh wait, probably best to hold it while you're expanding it, just to support it, instead of putting all the weight on the rotor that we just installed. And make sure you do it until the piston is flush with the this edge, or this face. Okay, one more should do it. Maybe that one's not required. I can't even expand it anymore, so we're good. Let me contract this and take it out. And as you can see, the piston is pushed back in. What's going to happen is that when you're pushing this back in, the brake fluid might overflow. So after you're done with this job, just pop the hood. Oh wait, I didn't even realize the hood was popped. Just pop the hood, check your brake fluid to make sure that it didn't overflow. And if it did overflow, then just mop it up with a towel. By the way, if you do a lot of brake jobs, or even if you just regularly, maintain your car, like most car owners should, then it's a good idea to get this expander because, it's cheap and it serves a very important purpose, which is expanding this piston. And I think it costs like $15, so I'm just gonna put the link down in the description down below if you're interested in buying it. Definitely recommend getting it. But if you do not have this tool, or let's say like you're stopped on the road somewhere and you need to change your brake pads, here is a way to do it without using a special tool. Just take a brake pad, an old brake pad, put it in front of the piston, and then take any clamp, any C-clamp. Alright, sorry about the camera shaking. Some bug got into the shirt of my cameraman. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say the identity of my cameraman, but you probably know. But as you can see, the camera shook. But anyway, the method is just put the brake pad in front of the piston, take a clamp, put it in front of the brake pad, and then clamp it until it goes into, until the piston retracts. And after that, you can take your brake pad out, and then next step is to install it. Make sure that the hose is facing inside. I'd be really surprised if you were able to install this with the hose facing outside, because not only is that wrong, but these won't align. But anyway, you want to position this on, and make sure it goes over the pistons on the top here, the side pins. And then you want to take your bolts, which look like these. They're a bit thinner than the bracket bolts, and screw them on. Okay, I didn't get that first one right. We do a bit of finagling here. Okay, so I got that first one on, that bottom one on. Let's get the top one on. Did I get it on? Yes, I got it on. Alright, next step is to tighten these. Now, the thing about these bolts is that they have a very low torque, 17 foot-pounds, so you probably only have to tighten them just until they are snug. Okay, so now we're going to tighten it. And like I said, just until it's snug fit. You can use a torque wrench for this, but I'd say it's not necessary. I mean, it's very easy to do 17 foot-pounds. Very easy to go over it. Okay, so it's tight. I mean, it's snug fit. It's not, like tight. It's not supposed to be tight either, because this is sort of supposed to spring back, and you don't want to prevent that from happening. And same up here. Okay, and just for good measure. Okay, so that's tight right now. So both of these have been more or so torqued, and now just take a step back and look at your work. Take this bungee cord out, make sure you don't leave anything behind, and by golly, I think we've installed both the rotor and the brake pad. And if you're just here for the brake pad video, then we've just removed and replaced the brake pad. This looks like a perfect brake job to me, but always make sure that after you're done for brake job, after you put the wheels on, just make sure that you pump the brakes a few times to get the fluid going. And also make sure that you test the brakes, at least in a parking lot or somewhere where you won't hit anything. Because, funny story, one of my uncles who also repairs cars, well, I'll just say, Uncle Yus was repairing Uncle Zali's car, and he did a brake job for him. and well, he told Uncle Zolly, okay, he did a perfect brake job because, you know, he's Uncle Use, and he gave it back to Uncle Zolly, and he told Uncle Zolly, okay, just pump the brakes a few times, and you should be good to go, because, you know, at least Uncle Use knows it because he's a mechanic and everything, that you're supposed to pump your brakes. But I guess Uncle Zolly was rushing or something, because he tried to reverse out, and he tried to brake, but it didn't work because he didn't pump the brakes first, and he ended up hitting a building. So that's the story of why you should always pump your brakes after a brake job. Make sure you cut out that part where I was rambling. But after that, you should be good to go. Just make sure everything else is in order. Make sure you didn't leave your bungee cord in there. Make sure that your brake fluid isn't overflowed, and you should be good to go. But for now, I'm Aiman, and today I showed you how to remove and replace the front brake pads and rotors for a 2014 Honda Accord. In this case, it was Amiro's Honda Accord. I hope he has a very fun time with the brakes. We're going to do the rear brakes in another video, but not today because it is night time. It's like 10 o'clock. I'm probably not my best at 10 o'clock, so I'll see you in that video. Also, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and look at other videos on EyeOnAiman, especially the videos where we work on Honda Accords. We're not just working on 2014 Honda Accords, but also things like 2004, 2005, 2006, and the other ones, because apparently Honda Accords are really common among members of our community. Never thought about that. But check out our videos on our Honda Accords, and we'll see you there. But for now, I'm Aiman, and signing out.